Spoilers! Yes, Rogue One has been out for a weekend now, so let's talk some spoilers finally! Because now I have watched A New Hope, so now I can talk about how it ties in. Yeah, I'm not really going to talk about the characters in Rogue One, or their personal journeys or any of that, because that's not really what matters as far as spoilers go, because you know they all die in the end. So let's talk about Tarkin. First off, I had no idea he was going to be in this movie. I don't know if anyone knew he was going to be in this film. So the first time you see him, he's facing the Death Star, he sees a reflection against the window, and then he turns around and he looks like Peter Cushing, and like the first 5 minutes I saw him, I was like, oh my god, how did they do that? But then about 5 minutes later, I looked at him and I was like, wait, that's CG. I don't know if it was motion capture or completely CG. I don't know what the specifics are there. What I do know is that the director was talking about how he did Peter Cushing in this film. And apparently there was this film back in the 80s called Top Secret, and in that film, there was a scene with Peter Cushing looking through a magnifying glass, and they had to use a sort of cast to recreate his face. And so the director, Gareth Edwards, hunted down who had that face cast and had a computer scan that so they could digitally recreate it so they can use it for this film. So there that is. I personally thought he looked pretty good. Yeah, he wasn't perfect. There were some scenes where I could obviously tell that is a CG Tarkin, especially, you know, when he was with other characters who were clearly real people like Ben Mendelsohn. But he didn't look horrible, you know? If you want to talk horrible in this film, let's talk about Mr. You Just Watch Yourself. That was one of the moments in this film that was clearly there for the sake of fan service. He even repeated his same exact line from the first Star Wars movie. What were they doing there on Jeddah? And wasn't Jeddah like about to blow up anyways? They just happened to leave that city right before the Death Star blows it up? Like, really? I guess so. And another shoehorn cameo in this film, I gotta admit, was C-3PO and R2-D2. I figured they would be in this film, but I figured that we would see them at the very end on the Tantive 4, which is the ship you see at the very beginning of A New Hope. Because that's where you see those droids at the very beginning of A New Hope. They're on that ship, so I figured you would see them like get on the ship or something at the very end of this film. But no, instead you see them at the Rebel base on Yavin 4. 3PO's all like, Sketif? They're going to Sketif? You know, you see them for like 5 seconds and then that's it. That almost seemed like a Lucasy kind of shoehorn cameo. I don't know, that's just kind of how I saw it. One of the things I thought was interesting was that you remember that crystal that Jin's mother gave her at the beginning of the film? A lot of people were speculating that, oh, maybe she's gonna be a Jedi because those crystals power lightsabers. I was like, that's only in the cartoons, right? Like, that's not really canon. Shows how much I know because she actually said in the movie, yeah, these crystals are known for powering Jedi's lightsabers. I was like, oh! Okay, fine. I like how she just said it with one line of dialogue, and now that makes it canon. Now we know how every single lightsaber in all the Star Wars movies that everyone had is powered. They're all powered by crystals, and I think that's pretty cool. I love the scene in this film where Krennic goes to Mustafar. I didn't think it was Mustafar at first, but like after really thinking about it and people saying, you know what, yeah, that's Mustafar. It's cool to know that Vader's built himself a fortress there. You see Vader in that hyperbaric chamber, whatever that is. That one dude walks up, he's like, my Lord Vader, Director Krennic has arrived. And sure enough, Krennic is there, and then Vader comes out of the fog, which that's how Vader has to enter a room. He has to enter through fog. And then just hearing James Earl Jones again, he's like,
Director Krennic.
I was like, dude, oh my god, it's Darth Vader on screen saying something. And they're talking about the conflict that this Death Star has created, you know?
Its power to create problems has certainly been confirmed.
I was like, that's kind of a funny line. Vader has had some funny lines here and there throughout the original trilogy.
I find your lack of faith disturbing. Apology accepted, Captain Nita.
Those were like sarcastic, witty, smartass remarks. He never had anything as bad as like a cheesy pun.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director Krennic.
After that line, I looked at my friends. We were like, really with that line? I don't like that line. I just don't. I don't like that line. He probably should not have said anything while he was choking Krennic. You know, Krennic was like, am I still in command? You know, do I still get the credit for the Death Star? Vader just should have choked him and maybe even said like no or something like that. Or just had no lines, just like as a warning or something. He's like, no, bitch. Of course, the better Vader scene comes later, and you already know that. So the Rogue One squadron gets to Scarif, the beach planet, and we have ourselves a pretty sweet war scene. And I cannot stress enough how awesome that aerial battle is. I mean, they're trying to disable the shield around this planet, just these X-Wings versus the TIE Fighters, and you actually see the pilots that were from the original Death Star attack. Like, you see Red Leader, I'm like, that is him. They even talk the same way, like those old radio announcers from the 70s, like, switch to targeting computer. Watch out for those enemy towers. You know, stuff like that. I'm like, this might as well be part of the original trilogy. Make it an original quadrilogy at this point. Quadrology. I love that one part where there is a Red 5 in the group and he gets shot down. That opens the position for someone new to come in and be the new Red 5. And back on Scarif, they're getting the plans using that one machine that reminded everyone of the Claw from Toy Story. She was going through all the Project Code names, like they all had weird alien names. I had no idea what any of those things were. I noticed that one of them was called Black Saber. I was like, I don't know, that may be an homage to the Dark Saber from the cartoons or something like that. But like, what are all these other projects that the Empire was working on? I don't know, maybe maybe one of them was a Super Star Destroyer. Or hell, maybe even the second Death Star, or the new AT-ATs. I don't know, it could be anything. That war scene on the ground though, where the AT-ACTs come out of nowhere and Donnie Yen senses it first, that really establishes that this is a war movie. Like, this movie turned into Saving Private Ryan, pretty much. And I really love the fact that all these protagonists that we've followed through the film, they just get picked off one by one. Dead. Like, K2SO dies first, he lands on the floor, you see, you know, the lights in his eyes go out, and then Donnie Yen goes over and he hits the switch, and then he gets shot and dies. And his friend goes up to him, he's like, I'm one with the Force is with me, and he goes guns blazing, shooting all these guys, and then he dies. The big confrontation between Jin and Cassian and Krennic, I felt that was pretty cool, but, you know, Cassian fell and he hit the thing on his back and then he died. I honestly would have preferred him to stay dead right there. He did not have to come back at the last second to shoot Krennic when Jin was on the balcony transmitting the plans up to the ship. But man, right after that happens, the Death Star shoots its beam down onto the planet and it's gonna blow up now. First of all, I love the fact that when the Death Star is getting ready to shoot this planet, you see the same exact, like, camera shots and angles that you saw from the original Star Wars. Like those guys with the weird helmets pulling the switches on the wall, the same sound effects even where you hear that Even those green beams of energy looked exactly like they did in A New Hope. I love details like that. I felt like I was watching the original trilogy look better than it ever has. And on top of that, this is a pretty tragic scene because the big explosion is coming for the characters. Krennic knows he's gonna die, and Jin and Cassian are on the beach hugging each other, and the music is really sad and epic. The choir, you're like, yeah, this is the end. The sacrifice they made for the cause. I felt that was nailed. And then up on the ship, the rebels have the plans, and that's where Vader comes into play. And dude, this guy, you see the dark hallway, you hear Vader breathing for a second, and then he busts out that lightsaber, and you know that these guys are not gonna make it through this. It is a slaughter. Vader is cutting through these guys left and right, force choking them, putting this guy up against the ceiling, kills a couple of other guys, and then just casually walks by and slices that guy on the ceiling. But what really made that scene for me is how the rebels reacted to Darth Vader, because at first they were really brave, you know, they're like, open fire, and they're trying to shoot at this guy, and then about 5 seconds later, they were screaming in terror, because they knew they were screwed. That one rebel at the door who was all like, help us! That is what made that scene for me, because it made Vader seem like an old horror movie villain or something. Even the choir in the background sounded like Dies Irae and shit. Needless to say, that was one of the best Vader scenes in history. And I'm glad I got to see that on the big screen. And so the Tentai 4 escapes, it goes into hyperspace, they got the Death Star plans, and they deliver it to Princess Leia. And she turns around and it's CG Leia, and yeah, I thought she looked pretty good. The one guy's like, what is it they've sent us? And she replies, hope. And that's the end of the movie. I thought that was a brilliant, solid 10 out of 10 ending. Because like I predicted, it goes right into A New Hope, like literally 10 seconds beforehand. Because then you get home from watching the movie and you pop in A New Hope and you see that ship escaping with the Star Destroyer going right after it. It just flows really well. It makes Rogue One seem like a part of the original quadrilogy now. The point is, we will never watch A New Hope the same way ever again. This film changed the way you watch a film from the 70s. Not just with Leia and the ship, but you know Galen Erso was talking about, I put that little weakness in the Death Star on purpose. So now many a Star Wars fan can rest easy knowing that, oh, one of the biggest jokes in the original trilogy, that tiny exhaust port that can wipe out the entire Death Star, was done on purpose. And that is canon now because it's a movie. A legit Star Wars movie that I thought was really good. Although after thinking about it for a few days now, I gotta say I like Force Awakens better than this. Rogue One had an okay first half and an awesome ending. Force Awakens had an awesome first half and an awesome ending. And better characters. But of course that doesn't mean that Rogue One doesn't get its say. It's still an awesome movie. And I'm gonna watch it all the time now. So which one do you like better, Rogue One or Force Awakens? Whichever one you like better, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.